If you've been paying attention to the news lately on Epstein since the latest drop on Friday, watching our coverage over here, then you would know what an absolute mess it has been. From failing to redact names, taking down files, 16 files that they already put up, taking down a photo of Trump, inserting photos of Michael Jackson at events that had nothing to do with Epstein. Lots of evidence of Clinton and photos of Clinton, but almost barely any mentions of Trump. Well, we've got one new one for you. Check this out. Ed Crassenstein was the first one I saw to point this out. Apparently, they are failing to properly redact the files that they claim are already redacted. Let me show you what I mean. Ed writes, breaking, some of the Trump DOJ's redactions on the Epstein files weren't redacted correctly and can be unredacted and seen. I'll explain the process at the end of this thread. So basically, he shows some examples here. Here is a redacted file from the Epstein files, and you can see there's about 4 redactions there. But turns out, if you go in and you copy this paragraph into your computer and then paste it into any text editing application, you will see the text that was supposed to be redacted. Here's the example here. We've got Financial Strategy Group. We've got Financial Trust Inc., Hyperion Air Inc. These are supposed to be redacted. And anyone can go in and just copy paste. Like a 10-year-old could unredact these files. And here's another example. Sections 84, 85, redactions, 86, redactions, and boom. You can see here fully unredacted just by simply copying and pasting. And it just example after example after example after example. Now, this is crazy to me because it seems like at this late stage in the game, the DOJ has one job, and that is to redact the things that are supposed to be redacted. And, the people on the right and the defenders always say, oh, they're trying to protect the victims and the victims this, the victims that. Well, it turns out most of these redactions that we're seeing are not victims. These are elites. These are the potential abusers. These are the people in power. These are, the leaders. These are the people that were redacted. And all this talk about protecting the victims, like, it doesn't add up. And now this latest thing with the failed redactions, I mean, it's like they went into Microsoft Word and chose the black highlighter and just replaced a bunch of text with the black highlighter, but that doesn't actually remove the text that's underneath. That's why you can go in and you can still copy the text and then paste it into any text editing application to see what's underneath. Mike, what do you make of this absolute bungle by the Department of Justice in doing what I would assume is like their one job to get right, which is to redact things they're, quote, supposed to redact? What do you make of all of this?
It's clearly a disaster no matter which way you look at it. If it's something that you are for, like if you're in support of the DOJ, you realize, man, this is like gross incompetence. And if you're against the DOJ on this, then you can see that, hey, they're redacting actual like predators or I'll just say non-victims. They're redacting non-victims, which is against the law. Another thing that's against the law that the DOJ has done is they were supposed to release 100% of the files, all of the files, and they've only released like 1% so far. And I saw that there's like another 10 gigabytes coming or something like that. But even still, there's over 300 gigabytes total. And they're clearly not sharing all of it as they were commanded to by law. So this is just one more example of the Trump administration just blatantly violating and breaking the law and not giving a shit and just doing whatever they want and being unchecked. So it's very frustrating on that front, but it is nice that at least, they're incompetent enough that reporters like Ed are able to at least get some of this information out there. Because if they go back and force the redactions now, then that proves beyond the shadow of a doubt that they are 100% committed to protecting potential predators and protecting these non-victims. But at the same time, if they leave it as is, then people could read, redactions. So the DOJ is definitely stuck between a rock and a hard place, but it's 100% self-inflicted. Let's remember that Trump himself made a big deal about the Epstein files. He said they were going to release them. They campaigned on it, and MAGA like swarmed around this concept. And they are the ones that told the president, we want to see the Epstein files because, you know, there's all these conspiracy theories like Pizzagate and whatnot about politicians and the elites having these child predatory sex rings and whatnot. And now that we finally have one that's real, they're not doing anything about it. And they're shuffling it under the rug, covering it up and downplaying it left, right, and center. So to see the DOJ make a flop this big, where you can actually see the redactions for yourself, it's just a joke. It's a complete joke as to whether you think these are competent people that are doing the right thing. You know, like I said earlier, they're clearly making massive mistakes there. And then if you think that these are people that are covering things up, then you can blatantly see the crime for what it is. So no matter which way you look at it, it's terrible.
Where is Alex Jones? Where are the conspiracy theorists that were shouting from the rooftops, you know, just a few short years ago about Epstein specifically, but just conspiracies at large that were part of Trump's base? Where are they now? Like, I don't hear much from them. Alex Jones, you know, he was the king of conspiracy theories and everything, known for, you know, the Sandy Hook stuff, 9/11 stuff, etc. Shouldn't he be at the forefront of this, trying to get to the bottom of why the DOJ is covering up for the president of the United States? Like, this was his bread and butter back in the day, but we don't hear a peep from him now. I feel like he's too busy engaged in the MAGA civil war that's happening. He's trying to keep the peace and keep everyone together, and they're just shooting each other and lobbing bombs at each other over there, which, hey, have at it, you know, fine by me. But I'm just wondering, where are all these conspiracy? Like, we are dealing with the largest cover-up, I believe, in U.S. history that is out in the open. It's mainstream news. It's all over. And we're hearing silence from the right. Like, I don't understand it. It does not add up to me.
Yeah, I think Dan Bongino is a great example of that. He was somebody who was very headstrong about we need to get these files out, blah, blah, blah. And when there was early criticisms of the way the DOJ has been handling it, I remember he threatened to quit. And then now he is officially resigned. So clearly he is somebody who is against the way that his own department is handling this. And to sit there and quit now, to me, feels odd in the timing, but I do think it speaks volumes nonetheless. You've also got Tom Blanche out there, who is part of the DOJ as well. And although he's not quitting, he's out there completely blatantly lying, being caught on Meet the Press, and just absolutely blatant lies. And so for the right to sit here and not mention any of this feels hypocritical, to say the least, because when Hunter Biden's laptop was all the craze, everybody was making a big deal about that. And there was a lot of ambiguity over what was what. You know, personally, I'm still not even 100% sure how that story even shook out in the end. But nonetheless, you have that level of vigilance and like, we need to do something. We need to do something because, you know, the Biden crime family, the Bidens are at the top. They're elites. They're connected. And the only reason they're able to get away with this is because of their connections. Meanwhile, you have the Trump administration blatantly covering up for their great leader. And it's inexcusable, no matter how you look at it, in my opinion.
Let's throw one more name into the mix. J.D. Vance. He was also championing the release of the Epstein files. He mentioned it a bunch of times on the campaign trail. He even has a couple of X posts about we have to get to the bottom of this. Not a peep from him these days. Funny how that works. Trump's own vice president, a big champion of the Epstein files. Now, again, let's also not forget he was the guy who called Trump America's Hitler. So I guess we can't expect too much from the man. Look, this is where we are, a complete clown show.
Yeah, and another name to throw out as well is Kash Patel. He was literally brought in for the Epstein files, if I'm not mistaken. And he went on Joe Rogan's podcast very early on saying, "Oh, I've seen it all. There's nothing really there." And I just saw a report yesterday from some people on X where there's something called the data set 8, which is currently not released, but people were able to access it by just typing into the URL. So in other words, the files are available and they seem to be ready because they are redacted already. So it's not like people are getting this early access or whatever, and it's not ready. They caught them with their pants down. But for whatever reason, this data set 8 has not been publicly released yet, but it is accessible. And going through there, people have found emails going back to 2019 during Trump's first term, where the FBI was emailing back and forth about these 10 co-conspirators. So there were 10 co-conspirators that helped Jeffrey and Ghislaine. And this was known back in 2019. And Kash Patel has the balls to get on Joe Rogan and say, "Oh, I've looked at it and there's nothing there." So, it's again, no matter who it is, anybody that's a loyalist for Trump, they're going to sit there and take metaphorical bullets for him over and over and over again. And Trump also has made it very clear that if you are loyal to him, he will use you as a human shield. And I'm not going to say that he'll necessarily, protect you, because as we've seen with Marjorie Taylor Greene, he has no problem throwing you under the bus the moment you say one thing against him.